What was your favorite city to not only like play in, but like stay and play in, like the whole package? Like, where did you enjoy living the most during your playing days?
So, Chicago is a lot like Washington in that they practice in like I think it's White Plains, White Falls, something like that, which is like an hour and a half north of the city in like a suburb. And so you drive into the city, so you don't actually spend that much time in the city. But I really liked Soldier Field. I like playing there quite a bit. And then you get to play at Lambeau too, twice a year, which is pretty sweet, or once a year. And like the history and the mystique of that is really sweet and cool. And Atlanta's nice. That new stadium down there, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, is really pretty spiffy. The problem is they can't fill it. So they're like they really jack the ticket prices up a lot. So like kind of their traditional fan base didn't transfer over with the new stadium as well as I think they hoped. And it's kind of like what they did with San Francisco, where they went from Candlestick to that place in San Jose. They just didn't get as much people following them down there as they'd hoped, I think.
That's cool, man. That's different. Like that's like three really cool experiences.
Yeah.
What in Chicago? What was your favorite pizza out there?
So this is gonna sound insane, but I did get pizza one time while I was out there.
Oh,
yeah. My wife was she was like 6 months pregnant at the time, and so she stayed here because they just got cut in Washington. So on the weekends, any off day, like I'd fly home and see her. So like we'd finish the game on Sunday, we do the meeting Monday. I'd leave from the meeting, go to the airport, and then fly home for like literally 24 hours. Fly back, and so I didn't have any like free time at all the whole time I was there.
That's
so one of my it's a big regret for sure though. Like one of those things like you're like, man, spent the whole time in Chicago and didn't get pizza one time.
And Mark, what did you hit today? You hit Giordano's, right?
We hit Giordano's last night when we got in.
Yeah, you gotta get Pequod's, man.
It was okay. It's a chain restaurant. I'm not big on chains. And when you come from Connecticut and you have New Haven pizza, you're spoiled.
Best pizza in the country, man.
Are you a Chicago guy, Ryan? You're not a Chicago guy, are you?
No, but I've been to Chicago a couple times for work, so I've gotten to play around the city a little bit. I love Pequod's. Big fan of Pequod's.
Yeah.
Yeah, just they do like that nice like caramelized crust in there. Oh man, it's nice, man. Mark, if you can get there, different experience than Giordano's.
It's tight.
It just hit me.
Good beer on tap.
I was at work the other night, right? And we were slowing down. The night was coming to an end. I was like, let me check my phone. I had a few messages on Instagram. I got on Instagram, and the first video that popped up, I think was Logan Paulsen sitting in like a robe or something. Like it
was a sweater.
Was it?
Sweater,
I clicked on the message thing and I was like, wait, was that Logan Paulsen? Like, and so I hit back, and as soon as I hit back, I refreshed my feed.
Oh, right.
Was that? What was that? What was
happening? That was me. So I did a segment for NBC Washington, and one of the segments was Professor Paulsen, and so they gave me some stuff from my Instagram to put up. I mean, I thought it came out pretty good. I mean, it's supposed to be funny.
It was well done.
So hopefully,
absolutely.
I don't know.
I love it.
Are you going to continue with that segment?
Yeah, apparently we did like 10, I think, and so like in one sitting. So I think they're going to keep doing them throughout the year. We'll see what happens. Cool.
Yeah, anyone listening, I mean, go check them out because the linebackers one was pretty cool. That was the first one, right?
Yeah. It was like the defensive structure. Yeah, I forgot we were live, so yeah, that's good. We were a little reminder there.
Logan, who made you cut your hair?
Well, my wife kind of said it was time. I'm getting a little thin in the front here, so the long hair wasn't quite holding it down the same way. And then the TV stuff, just the long hair was just too much. So it was just time to kind of get an adult job and an adult haircut. I was living in Never Neverland for a while, so it was okay to, finally grow up a little.
Mark and I got two different sides of the family on our hair, I think.
I got nothing.
So what side does that come from, Mark? Your mom or your dad?
My mom, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know because my dad's thin on top, but my mom is. I got the Italian side, so I got that nice like full flock. My grandfather's 91; he's got a full head of hair.
Full head of hair.
Yeah,
that's a good problem to have.
So I hope I got that.
Italians. But let's dive in.
let's hop into it, guys, because it felt very good having like a victory Monday and not coming off of a loss like the Bills game. But let's get right into it. So welcome to another episode of Washington Intervention. It does feel a ton better coming off of a win than it did last week. Team is now 2-2. And what I love is we are 2-0 in the NFC. So man, it's just a better feeling than coming off of that Bills game and the Chargers game. But let's get into it. We have our special guest, Logan Paulsen, back with us today. Logan, welcome back to the show. We appreciate you taking time and joining us and hopping back on with us. We love having you.
Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hop in, because the first thing I want to hit on, and we talked about this last show a little bit, was for whatever reason, and this goes back all the way to last year, right? But the Washington football team cannot get off to a hot start. It's slow start every single game. First 9 games of the season last year were, I don't think we scored a touchdown in the first 9 games, first quarter of the season. And then it's just a problem that's plagued the team year after year over the last couple of years. And we've now been outscored. It's 24-3 in the first 4 games of the season, picking up right where we left off in 2020. And the thing that was very frustrating about this first quarter too, to me, was hearing that although they didn't score a touchdown on their first drive, we were the first drive points that the Atlanta Falcons had picked up all year. So that was a frustrating thing to see. And we also ended up in a 10-0 hole, even though we, didn't give it all up in the first quarter. But question for you, Logan, as a former player, what's the mentality there for the Washington football team locker room right now? Like when you come out of a week and you've been slow out the gate, and it's been every single week, and it's plagued you from the prior season. Now you're going up against the New Orleans Saints. That first quarter, is there anything psychological there between the players, the coaching staff, the calls that are being made? Does that trend kind of go back to last year psychologically?
It's interesting. Like I've been a part of a whole bunch of teams who started very slow offensive, defensively, however, just started slow. And it's really funny. It kind of is like this quicksand dynamic, almost like you try harder and harder to get out of this slow start kind of moniker that everyone's giving you. And you seem to just continue to start slower. Like it's like the harder you try, the worse it gets. And I think, like for offense, one of the things you do is you'd say, hey, we need to be better understanding our first 15, first 25, first 30, depending on who your coach is, and really embrace those plays, understand how teams are going to try and attack us, and really just kind of get into the nitty gritty of it. And I think defensively, you kind of got to do the same thing. Is instead of playing checkers, you got to start playing chess, right? This is what coverages we like. These are the situations we like to run them. What concepts are teams going to run in these situations to take advantage of this coverage? Because every coverage under the sun has a beater concept associated with it, and teams know that, coordinators know that. And how do you help those guys know those concepts, know what the opposing offensive coordinator likes to do, and get your guys in the best situation possible to succeed? I know that seems straightforward, but when you've got a condensed work week, when you're really crunching the tape, that becomes a big task. And I think that's, if I was giving advice to Jack Del Rio, giving advice to this staff, giving advice to any team that was starting slow, that's what I would say, is you just have to prepare your way out of it. You have to get those guys so dialed in early on that there's no way they can't help but start fast, if that makes sense.
So we've been struggling on defense, and I feel like we continue to defer too, which is interesting. Do you kind of like see us continuing that trend? I just feel like if you're struggling defensively, you might want to start off with offense, try to get something rolling, try to give those guys an early break off the field. But
are we really doing that much better though on offense, more so than we are defense in the first quarter?
Not in the first quarter. I mean, we've put up 3 points in the first quarter all year.
It's
right?
easier to go 3 and out first before letting defense onto the field.
I mean, it sounds crazy, but there were teams I played for where the offense would play better after the defense. Even if the defense had a bad start, the offense would come out and play better. And I'm not saying that's here, but there are kind of rhythms you get into as a player, right? After the kickoff, after the national anthem, I always like to kind of take a breath, after that moment, watch the defense go and then let the offense go. It kind of helped me settle my nerves a little bit. I know like there are a lot of people that feel the same way as me, and some people want to go right away and get out there. I always felt a little frenetic early on. So maybe there is something to that. Maybe there is something to kind of just saying, hey, defense, like, we're going to let the offense go out there first, see what we get out of it. Maybe, I think there's definitely some merit there at this point. Like, why not give it a shot and see what it gets you? But yeah, I don't think that's like a cure-all, so.
When I played flag, I like to get out there right off the bat. As soon as
Just get out there right away.
I was
Start
like,
pulling
let's go.
flags.
Yeah, I was playing quarterback. My adrenaline was pumping. I was ready to put that adrenaline to use. Okay, I know it's not the same. I know we have similarities. Like there's a ball involved and there's an offense and defense. But
what do you mean it's not the same, dude? I have been running 10Ks for weeks in preparation for our turkey bowl coming up with me and Mark on Thanksgiving Day. Weeks.
Conceptually, it actually. It's so close to actually working out in our favor, though. You had Carter take the kickoff return for a touchdown this week, but in Buffalo, it could have worked out beautifully for us, but we let them drive down the field and kick the field goal right before half. So it's like, you think you're going to get some momentum with coming out of the half. It just hasn't worked out. So I hope they continue to defer. I hope we continue to go on defense if we're given the opportunity.
And also, it's like a confidence thing, too. I think when the whole offseason you've said – the defense is our best unit. The defense is going to get us where we're going to go. All of a sudden, you're kind of shrinking back from those claims, and rightfully so. The group has struggled quite a bit, but I do think it's a little bit of a confidence boost from the head coach saying, "Hey, I still believe in you. We still believe in you. We're going to put our best foot forward." Supposedly,
I mean, we're still getting pressure on the opposing quarterback on 27% of the snaps. We're getting the pressure there, but the sacks aren't translating. And it's like, man, are we just getting their second too late? Are we not, creating well enough? Are we not bringing enough blitzers? Or is it the secondary and the porous, ability to attack the middle of the field that's actually led to that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like, when Ryan, asked me to be on the show, I went back and rewatched the game and just kind of reviewed some of my notes from the game. And one of the things that I remember noting is that they've played a lot of five-man front early this year, right? And I think that initially that seems like a very smart decision. However, most teams who play like a derivative of an odd front, so like 3 kind of big defensive tackles inside, 2 kind of pass rush specialists on the edge, they drop one of those guys in coverage. And a lot of people say, well, why do you do that? Why are you dropping DeMarcus Ware? Why are you dropping Alden Smith? Why are you dropping these prolific pass rushers? And one of the reasons is the coverage contour is affected by not having that extra body in the coverage, right? So if you think about it, you get 3 deep, you get a safety, you get 2 corners, and when you've got 5 linemen, you get 2 linebackers, and you're rotating a safety down. So you get 3 over top and 3 underneath. Ideally, in a true cover 3, you get 4 underneath and 3 over top. And it just makes the throwing lanes a little bit tighter. And if you look at the statistics, like right now, this group, despite kind of these vaunted defensive linemen, have been one of the most prolific 5-man rush teams in the NFL thus far this season. And that's using 5 defensive linemen. That's using 4 defensive linemen and 1 blitzer. And I think, like you said, they are creating pressure, but when you have space on the back end, it allows the quarterback to kind of get the ball out of his hand a little bit quicker, a little bit more confidently, because you're having 3 people cover a ton of grass underneath. And I think that's something that needs to be factored in. Like, sometimes it's better to play coverage, just play consistent, solid coverage. I mean, saying that, like against the Bills, they played drop 8 where they rushed 3, and Josh Allen could sit back there and pick you apart too. So you got to kind of walk that line. You got to work to make that quarterback as uncomfortable as possible and make him hold the football and allow that rush to get home. And that is not an easy thing. Like, we're talking here, on what is this, Tuesday, kind of reviewing the game, and it's really easy to say, oh, they probably should have called that coverage there. But in the moment, you go with what you feel comfortable with. You go with what the team feels comfortable with, and it's so hard to kind of find that balance. And so to your point, I think more blitzers maybe isn't the answer. Maybe a more creative blitz package is the answer. Yeah. What kind of disguises the structure in. Like when you watch the Saints, for example, they run a lot of 4-man rushes, but they're dropping 2 defensive linemen out. They're bringing 2 backers. They're just challenging guys' rules in a different way. And even if you look at like the Bills with their pressure packages and stuff, those guys inside, they ran a lot of 5-6-man rushes, but like the linebacker number 49 did a really good job of matching the quarterback's eyes right away. And our linebackers aren't doing that as well. So to me, it's easy to say, oh, the rush isn't there, the coverage isn't there, but they really are a synergistic thing tied to each other in this really intricate way.
So Logan, quick question for you. I mean, you talked last week about how you felt like the defense wasn't pre-snap disguising their look enough. Did you feel that was the same case against Atlanta this last week?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt the same way. I think the one play that stuck out to me was the Landon Collins play where they're trying to hold a 2 shell, and it's obviously man-to-man coverage. And I understand what you're doing there. And to be quite frank, we're going to talk about it more later, but like, to answer your question, they didn't do it. And I think a little bit of that is, to me, a comfort level, right? Guys got to understand, like Landon Collins does a really good job of holding disguises late, but sometimes it's to like a disadvantage, you know what I mean? So like when to do it, how to do it, it's just not super effective for this group. And they're not hiding things that I think are relevant, to be quite honest. Like if it's 2-man, it doesn't really affect the man concept. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't affect the quarterback's view of that. So I think there's definitely some growth in that area for sure. And that might be not, certain defenses like the Saints, for example, they're like, this is what we're doing. Figure it out. And they're really good at it. They got a good front. They got good linebackers. They've got really talented players. But obviously this group, the Washington football team, is struggling a little bit. Like, let's spice it up a little bit. Let's see what we can get out of it. Let's see if we can get some miles, get that quarterback to hold it a little bit.
Now, Logan, that two shell that you're talking about there, are you talking about the Cordero Patterson, like that touchdown right before the half where I felt like that was a lot of Del Rio to ask of a guy like Landon Collins, right? Because in the backfield, you didn't have Mike Davis back there, right? You had your Cordero Patterson back there, who was a wide receiver, who's one of the most explosive players on that offense. And you're asking Landon Collins to come from a high safety position and come basically 12 yards across to cover Cordero Patterson, who's already, good explosiveness out of that route. So I felt like that was a lot to ask of him. How'd you feel about that call? Like, is Del Rio kind of accountable for that? Because it's not Mike Davis back there. It's Patterson back there, who's like a great receiving threat.
So like, just to kind of look at it from like a nitty gritty kind of perspective, excuse me. I think it's so easy to say, he's putting him in a bad position. They're not affecting coverage there effectively. However, like, I know, having been in a similar offense with Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, all these different coordinators, they have a route called Cherokee where they run those 3 wide receivers to the left across the formation, and they just pick the guy in man-to-man coverage on the back, and it comes wide open. It's hard to pick the guy if you don't know who's got the back in man-to-man coverage, right? So there is an advantage to have him playing it from depth there. And I think he did a heck of a job recognizing the coverage, and he played it pretty damn good. Like, he's right there. He's right there, and like, yes, it is tough because he's got to cover 35 yards of grass to make that tackle, and that's tough. And I think people underestimate how good Cordell Patterson is in space and how good he is as a ball carrier. And like, his angle's a little off. Like his hat should be kind of to that back hip, and he's a little bit ahead, so Cordell Patterson can cut back. And then you're in man-to-man coverage, so no one knows the ball's been passed, so they're all covering their guy, and they're late to rally to the tackle. Like, it's tough. It's kind of a comedy of errors. Like, ideally, you'd say, well, if they're going to run that concept, I'll just run I'll run cover 3, or I'll run Tampa 2 and have the flat guy be standing right there for the ball when he throws it. However, like that, you don't have the benefit of hindsight. You're running a 5-man pressure. You run a nice little inside game. You get a pick for Holcomb. He's got a free run to the quarterback. Like, you're trying to put it back on the field goal. And Matt Ryan does a nice little shimmy back, gets the ball out. Like, they get paid too, and they made a play. And ideally, yes, you'd like them to make the tackle there, but it's so defenses in the NFL today. I mean, I don't know how you cover anybody, to be totally honest. Like, the intricacies of the concepts and like the demand of all these skill guys you got to cover, like, it's insane. So yeah, like Jack Del Rio, is that the best call there? In hindsight, no, but in the moment, you feel pretty good. Maybe get a sack, maybe get a pressure, hurry the throw. You don't realize the concept they got going. So, it's tough. It's tough.
That's what I was just going to say. We got no pressure on that play too, right? To the point of the concept. Matt Ryan had it all day. It was like he was playing 7-on-7 flag, right? Like, he had nobody in his face.
If you watch the clip, Holcomb is running down the barrel, and it's close. It's like throw hit. You know what I mean? So it's closer than you think, but you gotta. And there's no way to kind of account for that, really. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have a crystal ball, so you got to put those guys in a good spot. And I think like Landon's there. He's to me, he had a really nice game in some other areas. He made some really explosive tackles on the run game, really disruptive, like shined in a nice way. If I'm watching the film, I don't know what to tell him. I say, take a better angle, and I say, you got to make this play. Like, you're in a good spot. Like, you did all this work to get here. Then you just got to finish it. And I'm assuming Jack says something similar.
It feels like every week we're one thing away every single time. I think Jack Del Rio's done a really good job of trying everything that we've said in the past weeks. Every single week he's making changes. It's not like he's just sitting on his thumb and not doing anything. He put Chase and Montez on the same side this week. They actually stunted them around and looped Chase around. Things actually looked really nice defensively. It's just not getting there and not.
Right.
But you saw the sack this week with Montez had where Duran forced him and Montez stayed, and it was nice. It was a beautiful sack, and it was on third down. So things are changing, but it's the miscommunication, and I feel like that's the reason why you can't disguise as well, because we can't run regular cover 3 with the communication in the back end being off the way that it is right now, and then try and change things more, and we're still having those miscommunication problems. Like we saw on the big play where Patterson his third touchdown, where I think it was Bobby McCain came up, he bid on the tight end, I believe, and William Jackson let him go.
Yeah.
Well, to your point,
McCain hit hard on that one.
To your point, Mark, it's something as to where it's either a miss play call, right, where Jack Del Rio probably should have called something else. He didn't read the play calling right. He wasn't prepared. I don't see that with Jack Del Rio. However, over having higher expectations for your individual defensive players' talents, feel like where it might be going wrong in this, where, hey, there's certain areas that aren't being covered the way that they should be covered in Jack Del Rio's mind. And so he's sitting there thinking that his players can cover more ground, right? Or they're better at getting around getting around the edge or doing whatever it is that he has them in his mind doing. And I feel like, because you can't call all the perfect plays and have all the best players and still end up having one of the worst defenses in the NFL so far this year, if not the worst, outside of maybe the Titans and the Detroit Lions. We have the talent, but I'm wondering if we're expecting too much from these individual players in the scheme that we're at, in the responsibilities, I guess, that we're holding them accountable for.
Well, Chase, to that point, if you look at our secondary, we have 4 key players who were not consistent players on the team or were not on the roster last year, right? You're talking Bobby McCain, you're talking Benjamin St-Juste, William Jackson, and Landon Collins was hurt a lot of last season, right? So you got 4 new guys that haven't played a lot of time together. I feel like training camps these days are not like it used to be, right? It's not like you're getting a lot of contact, you're getting a lot of that exposure before the season starts. So I do feel like that is part of it. The other piece that I'm a little bit surprised of, and we talked about it a little bit last show, was, one of the things Ron Rivera had mentioned was we relied a little bit too much on zone coverage last year, and he brought in players to play press man coverage, right? That's exactly why we drafted Benjamin St-Juste, exactly what William Jackson does well. And I think you see a little bit less of that. And he felt like we relied on it too much, so he wanted to implement more of that. But we did play in the first 3 games, I felt like a little bit more zone. I did see us play a little bit more man in this one, and I felt like we do well in man. We gave up really big play on to Calvin Ridley up the sideline when Jackson had a PI call there. But I feel like our skill set matches up with man. Logan, do you feel like you'd like to see us play a little bit more man, or are you happy with the mix?
So I think week 1 they played a ton of man, and I think it looked pretty good. And I think everyone kind of was burning St-Juste and burning Williams because they were saying, they threw for 300 yards. But if you look at the statistics, Herbert had more tight window throws that week than any other quarterback in the NFL. And I think that speaks to the group's skill set. They're long, they're physical, and they seem to play man well. Yep. The problem is you can't play man all the time.
Right.
You just can't do it. It's one of the easiest coverages to scheme up. If you're playing a lot of man in specific situations, you and me, I could scheme up routes for you guys to win versus an NFL defense. That's just how it is. You know where everyone's going to be. You can get guys off with motion. You can send crossers. You can send picks. You can do all these different things that mess with people in man-to-man coverage. And so you just can't do it all the time. So you got to mix it in. And in these zone concepts, you see guys really having a hard time. Versus, you mentioned the Cordell Patterson touchdown, the long bomb. I think it was the first touchdown of the game or whatever. One of the things that I notice is that so sometimes in cover 3, if you get a crosser, the post safety has to cut the crosser. And then the backside corner has to fall off to play the post safety, right? And obviously, Matt Ryan does a little cheeky pump fake. They get Bobby McCain to cut it. But in that instance, is Kendall Fuller supposed to be running to the post player while this guy's cutting? Like, we don't know. And those are the types of things, the nuances of the specific coverage by Jack Del Rio that need to get communicated on the back end. And I don't know if guys are communicating it, right? Like, it just seems like each week there's a thing like where guys know, oh, hey, on third down, we play cover 4. Like, and then a third long, every single cover 4 beater you see under the sun is out there. And they're just running them, and they run them to perfection. And you guys, that's their cover 4 beaters for a reason. Third and short, we're running man beaters. As I'm talking Buffalo, you watch that game, and that's because that's what they like to do. Third and short, they run man. So to me, like, yes, communication's an issue, predictability of play call is an issue, but like, what do you feel comfortable with these guys at the back end playing well together? And it's hard to know because coverages suck. Coverages for an analyst like me, they suck because you don't know what the rules are, right? In quarters, everyone plays it a little differently. In cover 3, everyone plays it a little differently. So what are the rules here? And it's hard to tell because every cover 3 looks a little different. And you're like, well, who's wrong now? Who's wrong here? Like, it's impossible to tell.
If you want anyone that's really difficult to understand, just go watch the Rams cover defenses, because those things, like, I mean, the way they scheme things up over there for the Rams on defense blows my mind, and how they utilize Jalen Ramsey as well. But yeah, it's understandable for this defense who's struggled up against big plays since Marvin Lewis, was the defensive coordinator. I mean, we've been giving up 30-plus yard plays nonstop for close to 10 years now.
Yeah.
And that play with McCain and Fuller, you watch it and you're almost like, maybe it was Fuller that was, but I don't know what Bobby was biting on at the end of the day.
But like, that's his rule. If the guy crosses the ball, he's got to cut it. That's the rule, right? So Matt pumps it like it's a crosser. He bites on it. I'm not saying he didn't bite on the pump fake.
Is he specifically going off of Matt Ryan, though? Because I didn't see anybody down there. That was the problem that I was having.
Well, no, they did have the one guy on the left side that was in the slot that kind of crossed over, though, and that's where he bit in front of, and that's when Matt Ryan pump fake to him.
So also, like, when the better guys are, the more reactive guys are in coverage, the smaller the fake. Like, Matt literally just turns his shoulders like that, and he gets a bite. And you're like, maybe just hold your water a second longer. But if his rule is to cut a crosser, then he's doing the right thing, and Fuller's messing up.
Yeah, he's saying it has nothing to do with the pump fake. It has nothing to do with the pump fake. He's saying it's the rule. Like, when that happens, you go regardless if there's a pump or not, right, Logan?
It might be that.
Yeah.
Or he might be biting on the pump fake.
But we don't know. And
so
we'll never
wrong,
know.
Right? Who's wrong in this instance? And when after the play, I like to watch the guys, right? I like to say, who's looking at who? And these guys the play happens and they just are statues. And it's like, does anyone know what the heck is supposed to happen?
They were both guilty.
Yeah, usually they go like this, like, oh, whatever. And you can tell that someone thought something else, but you could just say, like, Fuller's like, I don't know, was I supposed to get the post? And Bobby McCann's like, was I not supposed to cut that? Or like, whatever. And so to me, on the back end, there just seems to be a little bit of indecision, speaking to Ryan's point, that like they have 4 new guys back playing significant roles. And Landon Collins didn't play a whole bunch last year. So what is their level of communication? Are they on the same page? It doesn't quite look like they are.
And there was nobody that was actually responsible for that route, by the way. That's why nobody, looked at each other.
They're just like, that's like how the defense is drawn up. That's supposed to be.
That part of the field is supposed to be open.
Not for nothing, but Fuller completely switched spots. Like, yes, he played years before, but he didn't play there last year. So it's essentially a new defense for him as well this year.
Right. So let me ask you, because we just unfortunately had the injury of John Bostic with the season-ending pec injury there. But now that we have to have one of our middle linebackers getting replaced too, like, how does that impact it? Because that's obviously one of the guys who's most comfortable in this defense, even though he doesn't have the athletic ability in coverage as a lot of guys would hope. But, he still has the experience within the defense. How do we replace that?
Yeah, so I think the thing with John Bostic is I like John Bostic a lot. I like the way he plays. I like his approach. You hear nothing but good things about him in the room. But I've also heard from people affiliated with the team that he just manages to always be in the wrong spot. And, he's dropping to the correct position, but like, he's supposed to read the quarterback's eyes, like, get a little bit wider. This is a dig concept, get a little bit deeper. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just like he's in, like, on paper, if you had your Madden circle, he's in the circle, but you want him to be on the edge of that circle to kind of capture the route concept that the team is running. And so I think that's the thing with John Bostic. You draft Jamin Davis because of the coverage skills he showed at Kentucky, but right now, Jameis is like drinking through a fire hose basically, and I don't even know what the heck's going on with it. But he doesn't look like he's ready to go. Hopefully, this maybe empowers him, maybe makes him play better, because you wanted to get that long, rangy athlete in there to help with some of these coverage issues. He hasn't been in there a ton on coverage downs. He's been predominantly in there on run first downs, and even there, like that's not his forte. But he's struggled a little bit with that. He's made some plays, but he's not progressing the way people want. So I'm hoping maybe he kind of gives everyone a kick in the pants and he's out there. And I feel bad for Boston because that sounded like a pec injury, which is always a tough thing to come back from.
Yeah.
But maybe this is good. Maybe it simplifies the defense. Maybe because he's in there, they can't get to all this exotic stuff and they kind of play more vanilla stuff and everyone's on the same page. So, I mean, the other thing, I talked to some of my buddies on the team still, and they're like, they were talking about defensive techniques, and they were saying coaches don't. They're just kind of throwing stuff out there now, which is always a bad sign. They're not like reverting back to training camp rules. They're just kind of vomiting stuff out, like, oh, you can't do this because of this. And then they're like, well, my rule is this. They're like, well, not on this concept. And it's like, well, I can't like see it through a crystal ball, right? So I'm a little concerned to say that mildly, but
that was very well put.
So Patrick Mahomes comes to town in how many weeks?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they get it figured out. Okay, to give you guys, all listeners at home, the New Orleans Saints, I don't know what the heck's wrong with them, and I hope Sean Payton doesn't figure it out by Sunday, but they run the most vanilla offense I've ever seen in the NFL. They're running the ball like 62% of the times on first down, and they just run, screen, run, quick game, run. So if you can stop the run, you feel pretty good about it. They do have some explosive plays in the offense, but like an example, the Giants game, they didn't throw a pass deeper than 10 yards to the last play of the first half, right? Yeah. It's all tight. It's all within the line of scrimmage. So
this is the first week that Alvin Kamara didn't see a target in his entire career.
What?
Oh, wow.
This is the first week that Alvin Kamara didn't see a target his entire career. So, like, I mean, it's not even the fact of them using Kamara more often, throughout the dump off, point where, hey, like, we just need to get it to them because our receivers aren't doing anything. I mean, there is nobody to pass to in this entire offense, but it just seems like they're trying to waste time as much as they can and just let the defense hold it down. I
know you're kind of making a joke, but it does feel that way. It feels like they're just running the ball. Like, I know they're starting left tackles out. They don't really have a number one receiver, and it's like, put it in a phone booth. Let's take this back 50 years, and we are just going to run. We're going to run duo, we're going to run tight zone, we're going to run mid zone, and we're going to get 4, 3.5, 4, and get a first down, and then run a play action boot that we're going to dig to the running back in the flat. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, especially with Jameis Winston and all the arm talent. Like, I'm kind of like, in my mind, I'm like, what is Sean Payton doing? He's hampering this whole offense. Is he scared of Winston? Is he scared about the offensive line? Is he scared about the receivers? I hope he stays.
Weapons? I mean, like, with Michael Thomas out, like, their best targets, Marquez Callaway, like, do they just not have the weapons?
I mean, he had a big catch on a play action to get into the Giants game, like a huge explosive play. They got Kenny Stills, the penalty for a touchdown. He got called back, big explosive play, but they got some speed, and it doesn't seem to justify how conservative they've gotten. You know what I mean? It's so conservative.
It's because of their defense. Their defense is extremely thin, so they couldn't re-sign anybody this past offseason, right? Because they ended up
the cap
putting and by the way, they're geniuses when it comes to the contract. Kai, what's his name? The salary cap manager who was offered the Atlanta Falcons GM job turned it down to stick with them. He's brilliant. It's Kai something, I can't remember his name. But he is absolutely insane with the salary cap and with finding loopholes. However, they gotten to a point now where they've kept on pushing it back so far. They're like, hey, we need to either rebuild or we have to go, or we need to give the salary cap a break, or we're going to have to go into a full-on rebuild, which could end up still happening in 2022. However, they had to release a bunch of their solid guys, and they also could not re-sign a lot of their depth in the offseason on defense. So what happens if you end up running a ton of plays? Well, you end up wearing out your defense, and then towards the tail end of games, you're going to get left, hung out to dry, essentially, because the offenses that have a deeper offense that are more conditioned than you are going to end up just crushing you. So they're trying to keep it close to the vest. Both Washington and the Saints, I think, are tied at 57.5 plays per game, if I'm correct. I think that's 27th overall in the NFL. Just trying to run a slow offense so that their defense just does not get destroyed in the back end in the last half of games. And so far, they've been good at it. I mean, The record's 2-2 with Jameis Winston at quarterback, with hurt offensive linemen, with a very depleted defense, and with nobody at receiver outside of arguably Marquez Callaway, who is a late round receiver who hasn't done anything thus far in the NFL. So yeah, Adam Troutman, second year tight end. Juwan Johnson is their receiver. I mean, they just don't have anybody like this.
Yeah.
When you look at their roster, it is so depleted outside of their defensive line, which is still very thin.
Now, Chase, if you're going to go down that route, though, why are you starting Jameis Winston and why aren't you starting Taysom Hill? Like, if you're going to be a team that's going to run the ball 62% of the time and you're going to be that old school pounding the ball, why aren't you running with Taysom Hill? Because
Taysom Hill offers you areas where if you keep him fresh, he still provides, an uptick. Meanwhile, Jameis Winston hasn't really hurt the team. I think he had a 74% completion rate, 70% completion rate 2 weeks out of the year. He did have 2 rough games. I think he was 50%, and then another week where he was right above 50%. But he hasn't been losing the team games. However, like Logan brought up, they're still making plays. It just ends up getting called back because of this or this, which you can't rely on, by the way, moving forward. But it's something as to where Taysom Hill, he's not just a quarterback, and I don't think that he's the most valuable at that position. Once teams figure out how to cover those players, I don't think that Taysom Hill is a beater who can actually surpass, that offense and being the focal point of that offense.
All he does is win games, though.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because New Orleans is going to watch 10 minutes of tape on Washington, and they're going to say, okay, we're going to throw the ball to Kamara 25 times this week.
We have one of the worst dump-off containment efficiency scores in the entire league, dose scores. I believe, hold on, I have it up right here. I believe we're second to last. No, we're fourth to last. We allow a dump-off containment efficiency score of 4.82. And although we've played above average running backs, it's pretty much been for the most part. We are really bad at defending the running back and coverage, and that's not including the touchdowns are very minuscule. So the 3 touchdowns for Cordell Patterson had a very small effect on the dose score.
Yeah.
So quick question over to Logan, just because I want to hit on that because we have struggled with that in the past. Now we don't have John Bostic playing linebacker. Do you want us to see more Jamin Davis, or is it too early for him? And do you want to see us playing like a Khaleke Hudson, or do we go after a Jalen Smith who just got released by the Cowboys?
Thank you, Ryan.
Ooh, I missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's your first round pick. Like, I think it's time that he plays a little bit of football, and you got to kind of grow and let him grow and see what you got. I think that's my personal opinion. I have very high expectations for him coming into this season, and he has not seemed to be performing up to expectation. And I'm not saying he can't get there. And, like in the areas I thought he would excel, like they're not playing him there. And I think that's more of like a mental issue, that he's just having a hard time digesting everything. But yeah, I think that to me is the answer moving forward is Jamin Davis. I like Khaleke Hudson a lot. I don't know where he fits in terms of the depth chart and how they're going to utilize him, but I think he's a heck of a playmaker, and it would be fun to see him on the field more in terms of just adding speed, adding a coverage body. Like he played kind of that safety hybrid at Michigan when he was there, and I think that'd be really cool to see that kind of athlete on the field because that's the way the game is going. And so I'd like to see that. You mentioned Smith from Dallas, and I will say in the limited snaps that I've watched of him, he looks rough. He looks like something's wrong. Like, I don't know if his knee's bugging him again or his drop foot's coming back or whatever that is. Like, he just doesn't look like the guy that was the baller like 2 years ago. And I don't know what's happening there. So I would definitely investigate it. I'd check it out. I'd kick the tires on it. But after what I saw this year, I'd be really skeptical about bringing him in because I'm not sure he's healthy, to be honest.
Do you think potentially scheme? Because Dallas flipped schemes last year.
I think so. To me, the thing that like when I watch players, like so I'm a strength coach in like another life, like my part-time job. And one of the things that I look when I watch players, just how they move, right? And he does not look like he's moving very well. Like something's bothering him. He's encumbered. He's like kind of got a limp when he runs. His hip or his knee, I can't really tell what it is, but it affects his ability to cover ground. It affects his ability to make tackles, and that's why I would say like I would just be a little bit concerned about where he's at from a health standpoint. I'm not saying he's not going to get re-signed. I'm not saying he can't play in the NFL. System would be important, right? But we just talked about how coverage is lacking at the linebacker position. I don't think that necessarily is the answer for this football team, just because of, again, they can't cut him if he's hurt, but he just doesn't look like himself. So again, figure out what's going on. Maybe he wanted to get cut. I have no idea. Maybe he wanted that. Maybe he wanted to move on. He wasn't playing a ton, but I would kick the tires for sure. But I'm not sure that's the answer.
Speaking of strength and conditioning coaches, and I'm sorry I'm going off topic, but I don't know if you could speak on this, Logan, but what transpired last week?
Last week was what?
The strength and conditioning coach for the Washington football team.
Is it last week, or is it the head trainer? Or what are you guys talking about?
2 days ago.
I thought it was Friday that they actually went into the facility.
Yeah, so we could. I don't know anything specifically about that. I just have some experience, like pre the new drug regulations in the NFL and post, and so I could maybe give some insight on that. But I also don't know specifically about this. So when I first got in the NFL, I was a rookie, 2010. They would bring the cart down the aisle, and they would just hand out opioids. Like, hey, here's whatever you want. Take this. And I guess they didn't really understand the total consequence of it, right? So then people started saying I have a substance abuse issue. They really reeled that in. So before, in 2012 or 11, I forget. But before you got on the plane, the DEA would be waiting at the plane. They would go through all of your stuff, all of the trainer stuff, all the doctor stuff, just to make sure you weren't transporting any opioids, right? And across state lines, even though it was kind of all within the team. And they would go to the facility and see the number that you had in the facility, all that kind of stuff. So the only thing I can speculate, this is all speculation, everyone hear me, speculation, is that something related to that is now kind of coming back up. And I know they're kind of doing a pretty serious investigation of this individual. So
it's like a drink cart, but instead of drinks on the airplane, it was oh my
God.
God.
I didn't play. And again, I don't think they understood how bad they were.
Right.
They'd be like, hey,
no, nobody did.
You didn't play at all today.
But
it's not just NFL teams. It was
it's everybody in the world.
And I got a tooth filled, and they gave me opioids. It's like they give it for everything. Like it was that was just the culture all around in the medical profession. So I don't think that's a only NFL problem there.
Right.
That's interesting perspective. So let's transition over to that. We talked a lot about the defense and now strength and conditioning, but let's hit on the offense a little bit, because I think I saw a lot of progress from Taylor Heineke this week. I got excited about it. Now I know we may not have the answer at quarterback or whatever, but for the back 3 quarters of the season, we need him to play well for us to have a chance to make the playoffs here. I felt like he did a much better job. One of the things that was big for me was when he had an open run lane, he took it this week. And I didn't see that against Buffalo. I felt like we left a lot of ground yards on the field. I do felt like he had a little bit of hesitation on some of his throws. I think there were 2 to Terry McLaurin in particular that really kind of got me thinking okay, that timing's got to be a little bit better. One of them was on it was a 3rd down, and we saw that we were in man coverage, and he just hesitated a little bit to a play to McLaurin that could have gotten us the 1st down. It was behind him. And there was another one where it was that deep pass to the right sideline where I felt like McLaurin did a great job getting in front of the Atlanta secondary, and he just hesitated, and we left big yards on the field there. What do you want to see from Taylor? And I'll kind of give this to everybody, but we'll start with Logan. What do you want to see out of Taylor over the next 3/4 of the season go forward? What does he need to do for this team to win and be a playoff team?
So I think there's a lot that needs to happen. One is I look at the defenses that he's played really well against, and they play a simpler structure. The Giants, for example, play a ton of cover 3. Atlanta plays a lot of cover 3, cover 2, Tampa 2 variation. Not a ton of man, not a great disguising defense. Kind of, this is what we do, try to beat it. And he's played well against both of those defenses this year. You look at the Bills, they did some really cool stuff from a pressure standpoint, from a disguise standpoint. And obviously he struggled a little bit with that defensive structure, defensive philosophy. So looking forward to New Orleans, I feel pretty good about Taylor because they play a more rudimentary structure. They just kind of rely on the horses up front. They're linebackers. They've got some good personnel. Chase talked about how they're limited in terms of depth, but the guys on the field are good football players. So they say we're just better and we know our system better, and you're not going to beat it. So, but there is space there. So I feel my point is he needs to kind of take that next step in terms of understanding not coverages necessarily, but the different tools defenses are going to use to kind of gum him up and make it difficult for him to play at a high level. And the other thing that I'd like to see from him is just limit the amount of times in a game, because right now he's averaging about 4 a game, 5 a game, where he just puts the ball directly in harm's way. Yep. And again, those plays have not yielded interceptions for the defense yet, but I do think that's something that could easily happen. It could have easily happened in the Atlanta game a couple times. He needs to protect the football a little bit better. He needs to know when to put it all on the line and when to hold the cards, when to fold them. So those are the things I want to see. Him against more complicated defenses, how does he do? And we won't know that for another couple of weeks, which is great. So I expect him to play well next week, even though the defense is better from a personnel standpoint, and also just take better care of the football. And I think that is going to allow this team to be the best version of itself. I like the schedule they've got is absolutely insane, but I think those are the things I'd like to see.
Yeah, and I think Eric Harris had like 2 picks that he could have had that were dropped from the Falcons side. So it's a great call out. Like, definitely need to protect the ball more. Now what about Mark? You talked about this for the first, actually weeks 2 and 3 was our limited usage of Antonio Gibson, and some of it was because of us playing from like multiple scores down. What did you think of when we were in the red zone and we had the ball on the 6-yard line? We gave it 1 first down, second down, both to J.D. McKissic. Antonio Gibson not on the field.
I love Gibson. My opinion on him, but I'm getting nervous because I don't think he's healthy, and I'm getting nervous at the fact that I don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy. He only had 14 carries in the game, although I thought they did a heck of a lot better job of when and how they ran the ball. Their play design was actually really good with the running plays this week. And, 2nd down and 2, they ran the ball and gained 6 yards. It just seemed chunk. Seeing J.D. McKissic in there, he's a change of pace guy, and he's a good football player. So can you argue exactly with the selection? No. Do I want to see Gibson get 20 carries a game? Yes, but I don't know if he can physically hold up at the end of the day. I'm getting nervous with his ability to stay healthy.
We missing Peyton Barber on the goal line?
I liked Peyton Barber. I did. I think the game has definitely gotten a lot faster for Patterson, so I don't know if he's actually ready to play right now. But yeah, I love to run the football. I do miss Barber, but
so Logan, what was your kind of perception there when you saw 1st and 2nd down J.D. McKissic in there from the 6 and the 5?
Yeah, I mean, did he get nicked up, Gibson? Before
did he get nicked up before that?
He did. He was actually out for a play, and then Jarek Patterson actually came in for him for like 1 or 2 plays. But at the goal line,
but that was the flank injury. That wasn't on that drive. That was a different drive.
No. That's what I'm saying. But I think it actually affected their usage of him throughout the game after that.
He currently has 3 injuries right now.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things I'd like to point out there is they went McKissic, and then Gibson came back in, and they ran an RPO, and Heineke chose to throw it. Yep. So, and if you look at the TV copy, Gibson's like freaking out, upset because like there was a little bit of run lane there for him, and Heineke probably should have handed it off. So I think the coaching staff recognized the situation. They put their best football player in on the 3rd down, short yardage situation. They said, "Hey, let's go get it." And then Heineke made the decision based on what he felt he saw to take advantage of a number system to the left of the formation. I disagree with the decision to throw the football there for him. I don't think that's the right thing. They got 3 over 3. That's not when you want to do that. But, he made the call, and he's a quarterback. So, like, you got to live with all the good stuff that he does. You got to live with some of the kind of questionable decisions. Like, I'm not saying that's a wrong decision, but, like, with me with the clicker in my hand, I'm like, you should have handed the ball off, and that's obvious. But I do think the coaches are, like, Mark is saying, they want to get Gibson his touches. I think he deserves those touches. I think that play was designed to get him a touch, and Heineke made a decision that wasn't what that maybe was questionable.
Can we go ahead and hop onto the big issue with the Washington offense, which is Diamond Brown got hurt, and Curtis Samuel will not be able to play in the slot like I want him to get into the slot. He actually did get a bunch of slot opportunities this past week, which was great, but now he is going to have to play on the outside, and that's going to suck for Samuel moving forward because Samuel belongs in the slot. He belongs in the backfield. He belongs as a playmaker on the offense, getting the ball in his hands and letting him do the work afterwards.
De'Ami Brown didn't. I thought it was Cam Sims that got hurt, not
They
De'Ami.
both got hurt.
They both did. And De'Ami Brown, I haven't seen any injury news on him
I
as of
haven't
late.
seen anything on him either.
But he was ruled out immediately from the rest of the game. Like, as soon as he got on the sideline, they were like, he's out. Like, he took off his helmet and everything. He was done for the rest of the day the second that he hit the sideline.
We had a lot of injuries this week. We really did.
And Adam Humphries looked good, but you're going to look good up against Isaiah Oliver in the slot or whoever the hell played the slot this past week for the Atlanta Falcons. I believe it's Isaiah Oliver. But regardless, like, you're going to look as good as wide receiver, you know, in the slot up against the Atlanta Falcons. Curtis Samuel needs to play the slot. And it was about 50-50, I think, on the snaps from the slot versus on the outside, if not maybe favored towards the outside. But Logan, like, are you somebody that thinks that Samuel has to play the slot in order to be successful in terms of helping the offense move, not in terms of actually creating plays for the offense at other places? Or are you somebody that you know, thinks he can play on the outside?
It's basically Team Chase versus Team Ryan. No.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a heck of a question. One of the things I think you got to look at is his career thus far. I think when you look at his last year, he played predominantly in the slot. He wasn't overly effective there, but he does seem to be more comfortable there in the sense that, like, he's not – it's funny when you watch him run routes, he's not like this super polished – he's not Terry McLaurin running routes. He's very kind of flexible, which is one of the things that I think Kyle Pitts is struggling with, by the way, but that's a conversation for another time. And I don't know.
I'd love to have that conversation with you.
I don't know exactly, like, you paid him all this money. You pay him, that's outside the numbers kind of money right there. But he's a slot player. So to me, what you really want to do is you want to get McLaurin, Samuel, and then another guy outside. But nobody's kind of emerged as that guy. So you kind of hope De'Ami Brown was that player for this team, maybe AGG way back at the start of training camp, but nobody was able to solidify that. And Curtis Samuel hasn't played a ton. So the answer to your question is I don't know. History would say that, yes, the slot would be the right spot for him, but this offense needs him to play outside because I think Humphries is a better slot player. Or I don't want to say better slot player, but, like, if you look at the skill sets,
yes,
Curtis Samuel outside is better than Humphries outside, and
Humphries outside is nothing. Like,
right. So that's what
exist.
he has to do. It'll be interesting to see what they do this week with him, and I hope that they can kind of scheme up some stuff for him outside in terms of play action and stuff that where you can see his, like, long end, top end speed a little bit better.
Well, and I think with Samuel too, he, especially early on in his career, didn't play the slot because I think he had over 1,000 career snaps when he was over in Ohio State, and I think he had like 60 something in the slot in his collegiate career. So I think it was something that took some time for him to develop. And I think I'm just pulling up some stuff, and he actually had in 2018 a dramatic increase in his receiving grade. And granted, this is PFF, but he was a 54.9 as an outside receiver in 2017 versus a 74.8 in 2018. And I actually remember watching a little bit last year. Now, the one thing that I feel like he wins with is, and this is last year with Carolina too, is when they moved him around in the formation, right? When you get him moving, I feel like, and he took a lot of snaps in the backfield, they used him very creatively. I liked how we did that last week with him, and I think that's why we were able to get a couple really clutch first downs using Curtis Samuel. But I actually think he's going to be a nice asset to have. I think he's a good guy in those short yardage situations. He always seems to be reliable, whether it's with us last week or with Carolina the week before. But that is a problem. We haven't had that deep threat or that outside receiver emerge from this team in quite some time. And it's been a while since we've had multiple receivers that we felt like on the outside could excel. And I think De'Ami Brown, you were hoping was going to be that guy, but if he's banged up, then it is what it is.
I think the biggest hope for us is that De'Ami Brown is healthy and that Curtis Samuel can seize that slot role, because guess what? I mean, Taylor Heinicke does not have an arm on him. Like, how far do you think he can throw on a wire? Maybe 20, 30 yards. Like, that's about it. So if you're talking about Curtis Samuel being like a deep threat, somebody that can legitimately offer that ability. Like, you don't want lobs going to him the entire time because he's not good at tracking the ball. He had one of the most unrealized air yards of all of 2019, I believe. Maybe just 2018. It's not something that you want on the outside when somebody can't track deep balls. Curtis Samuel is great at getting these short yard receptions. He's great at getting open when he's actually in motion and whatnot and close to the line of scrimmage. Let him do the work after he actually gets the ball in his hands. And if we can't actually capitalize on that aspect with Taylor Heineke not having a strong arm, then we're in trouble if we keep on relying on Adam Humphries to be that guy.
I'm just going to give one thing to make you feel better. 5th highest quarterback ranking when thrown to when he was lined up on the outside, Curtis Samuel. So
What year is that? Just like all time, or is that?
That was, it looks like 2018 actually.
Yeah.
So going a little bit further back.
But the 2018, that's great. I mean, it's obviously in his repertoire. You feel good about it, and maybe that's why you bring him in here, because he can do all the things. But yeah, and you mentioned Taylor Heineke's arm strength. I think he's got an okay arm. It's not great, but it's not a wet noodle out there. It's not Chad Pennington arm. It's
no. I mean, I wasn't going to go that far.
That's like saying he's one of the worst arms in NFL history.
But I'm just saying, he does make some throws. He can push the ball down the field. It's not, Josh Allen, but it's all right.
It's funny because there's times when it's like, oh, there's some zip, and then it's like, what was that?
Yeah.
He only has a certain amount of special throws that he can use per game. You ever play video games and you're like, you have 3 stars that you can utilize throughout this whole entire fight
he's
that you have.
Pulsing on the screen, he's got that.
The meter is up high enough right now where he can just throw a rocket.
All right, quick question, just a little roundtable, because we do have the Saints game next week, and we touched on it a little bit and throughout the whole show. But any key matchups you're looking at? Any focus points for this upcoming week?
For me?
Everybody, but we'll start with you.
I'll start. To me, it's the linebackers defensive line versus. I got a couple, but we'll start with this one. Linebackers defensive line versus the Saints offense, because like we talked about, they want to run the football. And if you can get them behind schedule, get them out of what they want to do, I'd be curious to see what they do with the football and how they call plays and what Sean Payton does and how much leeway they give Jameis Winston. Because I actually think in the plays that I've seen, he's played really well. So I don't really understand why they're like this. But if this is what they're going to do and this is how he's going to call a football game with all these screens and underneath stuff, those guys have to come to play and have to play at a high level. And if they do play better than we've seen them play thus far this year, there's a good chance that they can stymie this offense and win this football game. But it really kind of teeters on their ability to stop the run and stop this underneath kind of, horizontal passing game of this group.
That's a great call out. Mark, Chase, anything?
I think our offense will be able to get something accomplished. So, naturally, I want to say our offensive line versus, the Saints D line.
Which, by the way, our offensive line looked great. I don't want to hear any more Chase hating on Cosme. And
we played against the Falcons. Are you kidding me?
So you don't think Cosme's good, Chase?
No. Okay. No.
Yeah. Let's be careful now what we're gonna say here.
Okay, so I don't think that Cosme's bad at player, right? I think that he needed some time to be developed, and he needed Morgan Moses to be that solidifying position while we have the depth necessary. Now, Cosme's been okay so far this year, and we sit there and we look at, I'm telling you, okay, so PFR has him graded every single week. It's the greatest player. But then as the game's going on, we're talking about how Cosme is allowing pressures on the quarterback, how he's creating penalties, how he's too green still.
What are you talking about?
Thank you.
I'm literally texting as it's happening throughout the game. All right.
Okay, dude. Okay, I will say this, Chase. He does have a very unconventional pass set because he's so athletic. So he'll lunge, and then I've never seen a dude be able to get himself back in position so quickly. Yeah, he's not perfect. He's green, but that athleticism comes through almost every single pass play. He's got to get some of the best pass. The way he fought his ass off against Joey Bosa, I know he gave up a whole bunch of pressures, but ton of respect for that kid. He's just gotten better each week. I feel like he's a guy that's going to be, of the draft class, he's the guy I'm most excited about right now. And, you can grade him all you want, but when you watch the game, you're like, this guy's playing football at a high level for such a young player, and I think his ceiling is through the roof. So, Chase, you bite your tongue right now. I don't want to hear some bullshit about whatever.
Until he starts having these bad penalties on third downs, I will not. But, it's just small things.
He didn't have a single bad penalty on third down this week.
No, it was up against the Falcons. Who's the pass rusher on that side? Can you name him?
Let me think.
It was what's his face, Dante Fowler.
Yeah, Dante Fowler, bro.
Yeah, seriously.
He was rushing off the other side for half the damn game, all right?
Half the game, so that's 50% of snaps, bro.
But going back to my matchup, I'm still saying everything relies on Alvin Kamara. If we don't stop Kamara, we're screwed. Last week's theme was Patterson. He had 3 touchdowns against us. I'm going Kamara this week.
Oh, but kind of to Mark's initial point, like watching Cam Jordan against Cosby, I think is going to be really interesting because that's one of the best kind of sneaky, strong, savvy pass rushers, and that's going to be kind of like a school session for Cosby, I think. Maybe.
I will take everything back. If he has the same result this week, I will take everything bad that I said. I'll do a bet. You guys think
he played good against the Bills too? What are you talking about? He played good against the Bills.
That's another rookie. I don't care about that.
They have like one of the deepest pass rushing stables that we've seen so far.
I will take everything back if he does well up against Jordan. Like I'll take everything back, and you guys.
I'll take back everything I say against a top 5, defensive lineman in the NFL.
I'll take it back. But no. The biggest matchup that I'm looking at is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, right? I think that's their slot corner as of right now, up against Curtis Samuel because hopefully he plays the slot.
It's Adam Humphries.
I know it is, and I hate it so much. So the thing that I'm looking at is the New Orleans Saints. They have the 7th worst, I believe, or 7th worst dose score, dump off containment score, up against pass catching running backs, and I really, really would like to see them use Antonio Gibson more in the passing game on the outside. They did a good job getting on the outside this past week. I need to see more of it. I do not want to see these, between the guard and the center type runs from Antonio Gibson. I know that he has a great conversion rate on the right side, I believe, or maybe it's the left. I think it's the right. I just want to see him get outside more. I want to see him get more opportunities in the passing game. I want to see him, get the big plays where he's one-on-one being a 230-pound running back who has wheels on him up against a 200 or 190-pound defensive back or a linebacker that he can outrun. Like, why are we not getting him in more one-on-one situations as he was a college receiver? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I really want to see that more often, and the Saints are the perfect time to do it since the Saints' run defense is so dominant, in the middle.
I feel like the sky is the limit for Antonio Gibson, but I feel right now he's still adjusting to actually playing running back. And we've seen it the last couple of weeks where he's missing huge cutback lanes. So until he actually gets his vision corrected, he's going to continue to struggle.
He's missed a couple, but he's also hit a couple really nice ones too.
But at the same, I think Scott Turner has actually done a really good job with play design with the run game. But we saw it in the Bills game last week on that. It was a play where he took to the outside. It was second down. He had a clear chance to go inside and take it and move the sticks. Last week, he missed another cutback lane. Those are his injuries and his vision are making me a little nervous.
The beautiful thing about getting involved in the passing game is he doesn't have to have vision in order to succeed in the passing game.
I mean, whether it's Gibson or McKissick, it doesn't matter. Just get the ball in one of our running backs' hands in the passing game because both are lethal in that category.
So we're at a over hour mark, so I want to do a quick roundtable here and just get a pulse on how we're feeling about this week. We getting a win, Chase? We'll start with you.
Why'd you got to start with me on this?
Because all the Sam Cosmi hate, man. You deserve it now.
It's going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be something that we're going to see probably the lowest scoring game in the weekend. I think I haven't done all the games yet, but I've done most of them. And so far, I believe I have this as the lowest scoring game of the weekend. It could end up turning into a shootout if they end up unleashing Jameis Winston, because then we're going to be forced to counteract. But I just don't like this 57.5 plays per game. I think it's going to be low scoring, and we're going to see one touchdown difference. I'm going to go with Washington taking this one just because I think we play to the level of our competition in most cases outside of the Bills. But it's going to be very, very close.
And Jameis Winston's a weird way to say Taysom Hill. No, just kidding.
Get out of here.
Mark, what about you, man?
I think everyone's riding the fact that the Giants pulled one out against the Saints the other day and are really sleeping on the Saints right now. I think the Saints beat us.
Logan?
I like it, Mark. That's good. Also, sneaky thought here. I think the Giants might be the second best team in the division. Spoiler
Say
alert.
that.
Anyway,
We got to cut that out of the podcast for all my Giants
No,
fans. I'm
they're
the
very
New
good
Jersey
this year.
man.
no, but I
Darius
mean,
Toney looks like the real deal. I broke down all his film today and like going through like even the times that he didn't get pass attempts right or targets. Dude, he looks really, really good. Really
He's raw,
sharp.
but he's a good player.
and like
scary.
Daniel Jones is playing top 5 level right now. I don't know how sustainable that is, but keep your eye out. Anyway, I kind of agree with Mark. I think this defense for the Saints is really, really good. Like they only gave up 10 points. Like there was only 7 minutes left in the football game, and the only scores for the Giants came off of big plays, like big play action bombs. John Ross busted coverage on Barkley, and then play action pass to get him in the field goal range. Like it was a grind fest outside of like maybe 6 plays. So I think if Washington could do that, I think there's a chance they're in it, but they haven't shown against better competition that they can get that done, right? And I'm skeptical because I just think the roster's better. I think the quarterback of the other team's better. I think the running back's better. I think the whole thing is better for them. I think Gibson's close, but you need the whole team to make it work. So I'm going to go the Saints.
Wait. You're talking about big plays, right? So we have one of the best tackles in the game on the right side, right? According to Mark, we have a quarterback with a very good strong arm.
Laser back and right
and then
arm.
we have one of the best deep ball receivers in the NFL, according to Ryan. So why don't we just chuck it deep, fade to the right, and chuck it deep every? No, I'm just kidding with you guys. It's definitely gonna be a tough game, 100%.
I'm gonna say I feel like our defense figures it out. I felt like we started to play, especially in the second half, with a little bit more swagger on defense, and I felt like we did play a little bit more man. We looked a lot more comfortable. I feel like we're going to end up taking this one. I just feel like this is the game where we get it together. I feel like without the great receiving threats that we've seen in some of the other teams that we've played, like the Bills and some of the Falcons, even with Pitts and Ridley, I feel like this is the game the secondary starts to communicate, starts to get it back together. I think we see more Jamin Davis, which I really like in coverage. And I think this is the game we all pull it together. And I think our defense actually looks like the 2020 defense and we get back to form. Maybe I'm just drinking the...
I think there could be an argument for it, for sure.
I don't hate it. Hey, Logan, I got one quick question for you that was off topic, and it doesn't have any relevance because the game's already passed. But if Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing during the Bills game, do we think we would have seen a closer game or a different outcome?
That's a heck of a question. I think it would have been a loaded
question, isn't it?
I think it would have been a little bit closer. I think Fitzpatrick, people sleep on Fitzpatrick, not because he's like this great, football body or anything like that, but because he's seen everything, right? So it's hard to get him out of sorts in the same way. It's hard, for Heineke, it's a little bit easier to get him off rhythm, out of cadence, out of timing. And Fitzpatrick's, he's been in the league for 17 years. So I think it would have been a little bit closer. Defensively, I don't think they're giving up less than whatever they did. I mean, maybe you take 2 scores away because there's no turnovers. But I do think Fitzpatrick, it's a little bit tighter. It's not, they're not going to win the game, but it's closer.
Yeah, I like that take.
Mark?
I have to go. My boss is blowing up my phone. I gotta go downstairs.
Yeah, I think
Get out of here.
Where
can they find you?
Hey, you can find me at Mark Crow.
There it is.
Good night, guys.
All right,
Bye,
Logan,
man.
why don't you give a quick little plug, tell everyone where they can find you?
Oh, yeah. My Instagram is Logan_Paulsen82, so come check that out. I do some stuff on NBC Washington, too, and 106.7 The Fan. If you guys got time, check it out. Really appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thank you so much. I do have to go also. I'll see you.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Thanks for sticking on with us so long.
Yeah. Later, guys. Bye.
All right. Chase, I'll let you wrap it out, and then we'll go from there.
I'm not going to do too long of a thing. I know we've been slam-packed, and I've been on podcasts. So
17,000
wait,
podcasts
2.5
over the last.
Dude, it's not anything compared to last year, though. Last year was even crazier. But yeah, you guys can go check out all of our content over there, FF_intervention on Twitter. Join our Circle_ on Twitter as well. Guys, go check out fantasyintervention.com. It's a great place. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasyintervention.
All right. And for me, you can find me at WhatGibbsFF on Twitter. Love interacting with the community on Twitter. So please give me a follow over there, interact. Would love to hear from all the Washington football team fans. And thanks for another great edition of Washington Intervention. We'll talk to you next week.
Later.